So, here we are.
Mm.
Thanks, Donna. So yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I'm really pleased to. This is an event I really wanted to us to run. I heard Kai briefly last year at TPS England, and when I saw the report come out, I was like, we need to do a session ourselves. I think Kai, I think it was in the invite, but Kai Jackson's a tenant, a consultant, a speaker, chair of the tenant scrutiny panel at one point, would you, Kai? All round involved in tenant engagement. And I think it's a really important piece of work done here now around ethnic minority voice in tenant engagement. And I think it opens up a number of conversations we were talking beforehand about, inclusive engagement is good for everybody, and there's so many things we can learn here, not just around ethnic minority voice, but also how we approach and how we do our tenant engagement. So no one wants to listen to me anymore. I think we need to hand over to Kai, and no, she's very keen for this to be interactive, to have discussion, and to really get behind this. So I think over to you, and welcome to TFAS Cymru's event. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm so super excited. This is a new audience for me, so I'm literally able to go on and on and on about anything that I've done before because I think other people are like just done with listening to me. Can you pass me my book? Yeah. So my daughter's here and she's helping me. Silly me, I forgot to bring this over. So this is it's not coming up clearly. Not, I don't know what's happening. Um, it's not focusing on it. So that's my report that I will be speaking about today. And I think I'll just kind of get into it now, is if everybody is okay, and then we can have a little Q&A afterwards, and I'll be able to introduce myself and the report, the findings, the recommendations, table principles, and how it's been implemented within England. So I'm going to share my screen. We did do this before and it worked. So
Perfect, Kai.
brilliant. So as David said before, my name is Kai Jackson. All those letters after my name means that I have a psychology and counselling degree, which is also accredited by the British Psychological Society in the UK. I am also a social housing tenant, first and foremost. I am the chair of my scrutiny panel for Black Country Housing Group, TPAS Associate, tenant advisory panel with the National Housing Federation, parent governor. It goes on and on and on. Basically, it just means that I love tenant engagement, learning, developing, and anything that comes along with it, you're kind of likely to see me there. Um, and most importantly, what I'm going to talk to you about today is my report, my project. Is there a seat at the table? Ethnic minority voices in tenant engagement. And one of the things that I would say I've changed as well now is my presentation slide. You'll see that it has a pastel background on it. That just means that it's more accessible, and people ADHD or autism or dyslexia are more able to read the text on here and not have the distraction of a purely white background. So that's something that I'm learning to do and evolving with. So this is the first time I've actually used it. So hopefully it would, that's one of the changes that I'll be making going forward. Okay, so my project, this has been going on for roughly over 2 years. It started off with just myself being involved in tenant engagement, being the chair of my scrutiny panel, trying to know more about what resident engagement is. I noticed when I went to a lot of meetings and conferences, there wasn't much people that looked like me. There wasn't much people that had a voice like me or in the space that I felt all tenants should be in. Um, so that was something noticeable for me. And the more and more I went out and asked, a few people that I did see and staff members, I heard the constant conversation that we find it hard to engage with either our landlord, or we find it hard to engage with tenants from ethnic minority backgrounds. And I felt it was important that they were represented, because this was at the time when we was going through the consultation of the what we have now is the Social Housing Regulation Act in UK. And that came off the back of the tragedy that happened in Grenfell 7 years ago, and also from the death of Awab Ishak 2 years ago. So it was important, and then that law kind of implemented more of what that tenants should be engaging with their landlords, building connections, building community cohesions, having their voices heard at decision making conversations. And it just seemed like there wasn't a demographic that was having their voices heard and a part of the conversation. So I did some research to look at why this was the case. Um, there was different articles and stuff out there from Joseph Rowntree, from Shelter, even from the National Housing Federation, of the disproportionalities from the data, but there was nothing out there that actually asked tenants, why do you not want to get involved? Why do you not have your voices heard? Why do you not want to engage? So going through all of that, I didn't find any data that actually came directly from the tenant's voice. So I became a TPAS associate nearly 2 years ago now. And I was just giving ideas on what type of work that I wanted to do with them. And one of the things was a webinar about how more people from ethnic minority backgrounds can engage. They noticed that this was something that was relevant to them and that was visible in their engagement, that they didn't see much diversity in their meetings as well. So they sponsored this project. And this project has been supported by the National Housing Federation, the Chartered Institute of Housing, Inside Housing, the Ministry of Housing, Community and Local Government, the regulator, the ombudsman. So, it's really taken a lot of wings. This report was only supposed to be a 4-month report originally and turned into 18 months. So it kind of showed the need in the sector to have more engagement and the concerns and the barriers that staff are facing in engaging with people from ethnic minority backgrounds, as it was always labeled they were hard to reach. So I think that is why it took a lot longer, because there was a lot more consultations and conversations than I originally thought. And I didn't realize how much people really wanted to engage, not just staff members, but tenants as well. So when it was launched last year on the 5th of February, filling out the data that we have. So filling out the report, filling out the surveys, focus groups. We had 3 of them, which included staff and tenants, and was facilitated by myself and my little research team. So altogether, we had over 370 participants from up and down the country. So there was definitely a good representation from north and south and in between the UK. So the findings was then shared with the Ministry of Housing, Community, Local Government, which is actually the big government, and also with the regulator of social housing, who I will talk a little bit more about further. So this was a report that has definitely gone up and down the country, had a lot of interest, had a lot of conversations being brought up around it. So it's very much something that has been implemented within the whole of the UK, hopefully. And just at the bottom, these are places where you can now download the report in full. So it's either from TPAS or our partner, which was the UK Collaborative Centre for Housing Evidence. So just to say, like, my research team was myself and Louise Holt from TPAS England and Dr. Gareth Young from Cash. And they were absolutely brilliant. From my side, I couldn't gush about them anymore if I tried. And this report is just like a testament to our teamwork together. So, whoop, gone back. Okay, so from the report, these are some of the findings that we had. One of the biggest things was almost all respondents, 95%, expressed that their organization could do more to attract tenants from ethnic minority groups to participate in their influencing structures. So this report is something that can be implemented in your governance structure. So looking at different ways to engage and different ways to it doesn't have to be definitely formal structuring. It could just be simple conversations, but that's more that we can discuss later on. Over half of people answered they don't consider their organization's tenant influencing structures reflective of their ethnic makeup of the overall tenant base. So this is something that is definitely continuing conversations. And going forward, hopefully everyone have a read. We will be able, well, this is recorded and we'll be able to share it as well. So you could have a bit more of a read, but all of this is included within the report as well. So those were I think those were the main ones that I kind of picked out, the main findings that I picked out that I wanted to share along with additional information that's in the report. But these are some of the things that are a bit more, how could I put it, a bit more insightful when it comes to the state of the sector. So one of the things that I found was very concerning was the one on, I would say, my top left. Hopefully it's probably a mirror image. So we struggle to engage with what is a totally chaotic group of people who have probably previously had bad experiences of housing associations. Well, if you have that mindset towards people, then it's most likely that they will have bad experiences with housing associations, if that's how you characterize them. So we don't use reflective practices as a larger service for tenants. I have experience where tenants have been discriminated against because of their ethnicity. So this is something I wanted to kind of highlight just to get people to really understand where we are in the sector, the mindsets of staff and tenants as well, and just to understand a little bit more of why engagement may be a bit more difficult in some cases. So one of the first things that TPAS asked me to do was they sent me 25 websites, which were randomly chosen. They were from big organizations, small organizations, local authorities as well. And I looked at how easy it was to actually to get onto a customer portal. Well, sorry, a customer engagement website or portal. How much clicks does it take to get there, how engaging it is as well, the type of terminology that's used in there too, and most importantly, the visual aspect of it. So it was a case of, as you know, you see in the presentation, if you can see, you can be it. What we found, there was 64% of the websites that didn't show any tenant engagement from ethnic minority groups or any visual aspects of there. But on the flip side of that, 20% did show over 75% of ethnic minority imagery within their tenant engagement. So many tenants felt like, well, visual side of it, I can't see anybody that looks like me engaging. So is this a platform, or is this a place where I can be welcomed and feel like my views will be heard and taken into account? So it was a visual aspect of, if you can see, you can be. And the good side of it is that since then I have seen more organizations making their websites more visually representative of their tenant basis. So as I said, this project has helped to kind of like highlight certain things in that aspect when it comes to engagement. So this, I know that in the report, you'll see that I've made this report very transparent. So you'll see all of the data that was collected in there, except for the raw data, because that was one of the things that we said that we wouldn't share, because there were personal details on there. Sometimes people may have used the name of the organization that they had come from, or the person who they had a grudge against, or something of that nature. So to keep that kind of anonymity, I normally get that name wrong, that word wrong. Yeah, to keep that. So we try to just keep, that's the only detail that we kept behind closed doors. Everything else is very transparent in the report, the questions that I came up with and used. So this is something that you can also use along with your organization as well, if you wanted to capture more data on tenants. This is something that was given the thumbs up by the regulator to say that, if you do want to engage, send out surveys or something. There is bits of within this report of questioning that you may find may be useful to your organization. So going back to the previous slide, looking at this, there's one from tenants and one from landlords, and you'll see the top two most important things to them are very similar. So being more proactive with minority groups and better advertising. That's something that we saw previously with the websites as well. If you can see, you can be. Many tenants didn't even know that there was any engagement structures. The housing ombudsman, the regulator, they didn't know about the law that had changed as well. They didn't know about complaints. They didn't know about a lot of things with their landlord. So better advertising and tailored if needs be, to represent and actually reach those tenants that you may not hear from, or you may have information about them that, as I done, may change the font or change the background so it's more accessible to them as well. Change the language preferences for them to, or even just go in and being face to face and more engaged in the community as well. This too is also a type of advertising on what you do as an organization and how you engage with tenants too. So it's very telling that these two things were parallel when it comes to tenants and landlords and what they wanted and what they thought could be improved as well. So the key findings, this is, I suppose, what everybody's waiting to hear about. The key findings of report is highlighted in darker font. And then the end of it is just like a little bit of a synopsis on the more descriptive one that's in the report. So targeted communication and outreach, building trust and respect, addressing systemic barriers, enhancing staff competency, strengthening data systems, allocating resources and funds, and community-led initiatives. So all of these are different parts that you can look at within your organization and should hopefully make up a collective of engagement and different things that you can do as well, which is more broken down within the content of the report as well. So this is my fourth child, the table principles. I actually came about these table principles while I was washing the dishes. So when anybody says I don't even think it was my day to wash up the dishes, but this is what came from it. So I was washing up the dishes. So whoever claims, oh, I shouldn't wash up the dishes, it can be life changing. So yeah, we'll just take it from there. So the table principles officially came about when I had a meeting with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, because we had regular meetings with them throughout the course of this project, and we was asking them, they asked, what can you put out there into the sector that is more long-standing, something that organizations big and small can actually adapt into their structure, something that's financially viable as well, that both large and small organizations can afford to do and implement within their organization too, and that can be measured as well. So that was the challenge that was set out to us from the ministry. And anybody who works in the sector, it's a lot to have something that adapts to all organizations within the social housing sector. So hopefully I've kind of hit the nail on the head with this. So T is for tailored training. A is for actively engaging with communities. B is bringing everyone into the conversation. L is listening, and that means not just listening to react, not just listening to respond, but actually listening to what the tenants are saying and actually hearing them out. And E, I kept as ethnic minorities because I wanted to highlight and make sure it wasn't lost within this project of the barriers that ethnic minority tenants face when it comes to engagement. I don't think that should be taken away from it. But at the same time, these table principles can be implemented throughout all tenant engagement and for everybody within your organization as well, because everybody needs training. Everybody should be listening to tenants. Everybody should be actively engaging in their community. So this is something that is not just targeted to frontline staff. It literally goes from frontline all the way to board members. So can the table principles be measured? This was one of the biggest things, and yes, it can. So implementing the table principles will support in building trust with tenants from ethnic minority backgrounds, increase community cohesion, positively impact a culture of inclusion within your organization, support personal development of staff, better tailor the use of resources and finance, and support with recruitment of ethnic minority tenants for formal and informal engagement. The principles can be implemented not only in the EDI planning, but in overall corporate planning, as the table principles would look at financial planning of services provided, training offered, and building local resourcing. It will also look into community collaborations and the governance structure, as it may evidence a gap in tenant inclusion and lived experience assurance to be provided to the board and to the regulatory compliance. So this is kind of blurry. I don't know if it's blurry for you as well. This is just something that a colleague of mine done. It's a kind of breakdown and accessible format of the table principles, which was absolutely brilliant. Hopefully, if you need a better copy of this, I'll be able to forward something to Helen, because I don't know if it's my vision that's failing me right now. But yeah, this is just like a more accessible, easier kind of like format of the table principles. So because this is a change between England and Wales, obviously there's going to be some differences, as we have the regulator of social housing in England, and I know it's different in Wales. So I've been told by Helen. So in England, we have the regulator. The regulator is commissioned by the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. They are the ones that come out, and they have inspections now over the next 4 years. So they've done the first one, so they have 3 more years when they go out and inspect organizations of over 1,000, of organizations who have over 1,000 properties. Organizations who have under 1,000 properties are kind of regulated by the smaller regulation team within the whole concept of the regulator. So, and also they will go in, have a talk with them, and kind of keep that conversation and checks going. But the really stringent one is for organizations who have over 1,000 properties. They have the governance and financial viability, where they can get ratings of G1 and V1, which is the best, which means your organizations, it's viable, it's running well, you are meeting your criteria when it comes to financial planning or your governance structure of how your organization is run. And then we have the one that really applies to tenants, which is the consumer standards. And these are the ones highlighted with the underline. These are the ones that are what the consumer standards look at. So, as said, hopefully you can have access to these slides afterwards. So you'll be able to click and see exactly, all the different criterias and different things that the regulator would look at when it comes to inspections. And tenant engagement definitely goes throughout all of it. So that's how important the regulator looks at resident engagement within organizations. And this is also where my project really fits into the regulatory standards in the UK as well. So the regulator, we have the ombudsman, just to kind of clear the barriers of those two. The ombudsman looks at personal complaints from tenants, where the regulator looks at the business of the organization. So they don't deal with the day-to-day one-to-one complaints. They deal with is if there's any business failings or compromises within the organization as a whole. So this is how my report can also help with your organization as well. I picked out a few things here. Helen was kind enough to send me a copy of the new consultation for your regulatory framework. And this just goes to show a few areas where this report can actually help in supporting and evidencing what you are doing when it comes to resident engagement via the report as well. Because these are similar to the consumer standards that we have in England too. So it's kind of like a cross-cutting thing too. So yeah, these are a few things that there were a bit more on there, but then I didn't want it to get too long-winded as well. So these are a few things that I was able to pick out that relates to my report too. So nearly there. So ask yourself, do you truly exemplify diversity? Does everyone have a seat at the table? And how are you planning to evidence that you are meeting the diverse and the wider voices of your tenants for the regulator? And not only just for the regulator, for yourself as an organization as well. So this is my hashtag, have a seat at the table. And, for further information or anything, feel free to contact TPAS on the email below, or even contact Helen, because she'll be able to forward any emails or anything over to me. So, yep, I think that's about it. So hopefully I was able, am I back now? Yes. Hopefully I was able to kind of get everything in there. So this is the time where I say, if you have any questions,
Yeah,
please
absolutely.
ask.
Thank you so much, Kai. I'll let you just take a breather for a second.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you for taking us through that. I think the table certainly got me thinking about the different things you got in there and the recommendations. So this is the people who've come today, this is your chance to ask some questions directly to Kai as author of this. I'm open to however you want to do it, whether you use the chat, whether you stick your hand up, or whether you just shout out, just however you want to do it. I know there's always the thing about going first. No one wants to.
Come on, let me have it. Yeah.
But there's Ali.
No
Want to
one
go
of the
first, Ali?
questions.
Yeah.
Go on. Sorry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you very much for an amazing presentation and really interesting work.
Thank you.
I liked your table principle, especially the first two things, which were education and proactively getting involved with the communities.
Yes.
So could you advise us, do you think, on how to sort of find those communities? I think a lot of us know that instead of trying to get tenants to come to us, to our buildings and our meeting rooms and things like that, it's a lot better to get out there and go to their places where other people feel comfortable in their own environment. Some places we'd know where to go and we'd know who to sort of try to reach, but a lot of the time we don't. Can you give us any advice on how to approach different groups, or how to find them in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a question I get asked quite often, and coming from the focus groups, and these are just what tenants have said to me throughout the course of this project, is that the simple things of having I don't know if you probably, I don't know if it's, I'm trying to work with the contrast between England and Wales. So what we have is staff walkabouts, where our housing officers will go out along their patches and just go out and speak to tenants, get to look around the area, find out if there's any fly tipping or anything, knock on the door to a couple of people who they may not have heard from in a while or anything. Also, I would say community centres as well. Churches have a lot of community engagement activities. One lady said actually going to the local hairdresser, because that's where all the gossip is and they normally know everything that's going on in your community. Going out to religious centers and places of worship as well. They do a lot of community engagement too. That's where a lot of your tenants are. When I mentioned about tailored training, there are some religious places that would actually come out and speak with you. They will come out and speak to your organization as well, to give you more of an idea about any religious practices, dates that you should be aware of, different things like that. So that's where it comes to the tailored training part of it as well. If there's a growing demographic of tenants within your area that you find that you may have an influx of Eastern European, or you may have an influx of Pakistani or Bangladeshi. It's always good to kind of go to those places and build that community network, because they can also be a good contact and like a golden thread for you, so to speak. So if there's any changes or anything that's happening, they'll just like contact you, and they'll be able to also mediate in different concerns and issues that are happening. I think those were kind of the main things. That I had something that is literally just gone off the tip of my tongue as well that I wanted to kind of put out there. But I think those are more the main things when it comes to engagement. Oh, that was it. There was an example that I've heard that organizations, they may have like may want to, they've hired a community center, and they've invited tenants to come have a speak with them, participate in a workshop or something, and they've had no or literally low turnout from their tenant bases. And it's something that I said to myself, well, okay, then, if that's the case, there are organizations like community centers out there, churches, and different things that we've just spoken about. Ask if you could sponsor a table at their event. You know that the tenants are going to be there. You know that they're going to have a better turnout than you are. So why not? That's also part of building your community cohesion as well. And then you'll be able to people walk past, they'll see you engaging within the community. And those are where your tenants are. You could just have a quick conversation with them, ask a question of what's going on and things like that. And the money that the hundreds, maybe thousands of pounds that you may spend in hiring a hall and doing everything, you could probably spend probably £60 on a table at a community church event or something, and you probably get more engagement that way than you would if you was to put something on yourself, because it's just building back the engagement with the community and your tenants too.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I've got some hands. Vicky, I will come back to you in the chat, but as we've got some hands up live. Sarah, I think yours was first. Do you want to, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kai. That was a really great presentation, really engaging, really enjoyed that. And your slides were great as well. So a copy of those would be really welcome. Yeah, my question is, because I always kind of like look into the statistics of these things with engagement. What was your split like between your landlords that were involved, with the staff involved, and the tenants that were involved? And sort of another question is also, how did you share your survey? What means did you use to share the survey, to then be able to collate the data that you got back?
Yeah, it was about a 50-50 split between
Mhm.
tenants and landlords as well. So it was cross-cutting. So we had local authorities, housing associations, TMOs, tenant management organizations, ALMOs as well. So we had a good like cross off data
Yeah.
representation. We used different ways. Obviously, it was on the TPAS website. It was also, we had a QR code. So every time I would go out to conferences and stuff, I would just like, can you just like scan this for me? Organizations would also put it on their websites as well. They would send it out in their newsletters. It was on the major housing, like not consortiums, like the National Housing Federation. They supported it, so they put it out on their website. So did the Chartered Institute of Housing, and so they was able to then, like, it trickled down and filtered down. And it actually also, with the additional conversations that I had with housing providers, they put it directly out through their tenant bases as well. So there was quite a lot. And plus also Inside Housing, I done a article with them where they actually highlighted the report and actually put the link in there too, and also on my LinkedIn page too. So yeah, I was everywhere. People were literally at this point, but it was something that was important. I loved, and yeah, I just literally put it out there. So as I said, there's nothing out there so far like this. So
Yeah.
starting from the foundation at the bottom of it. And in data collection as well, we did use an external organization, TFL.
Okay.
So everything was kind of, sent to them. So they analyzed the data, put all the charts and all that stuff together. So yeah, that's how we done the data collection. And our surveys was to help with GDPR. Our surveys didn't have any like personal information asking or anything there. So that way people could be free to kind of, talk about and just kind of like say how they really felt about it rather than feeling, okay, I can't say this or else my organization's going to have a go at me or something like that. And I think that kind of gave people the kind of chance, authority to be more open about their views and their thoughts, which is exactly what we wanted from this report as well.
Yeah, that's great. We always find that anonymous surveys, we get a higher response too.
Yeah.
And sort of one last question, if I'm allowed. Then going on to your focus groups, how did you hold your focus groups? And again, sort of how many people engaged did you have in each of your focus groups?
Yeah, we had 3 focus groups, 90 minutes each. We had it at over 3 different days at 3 different times, and it involved tenants and staff members because I felt it was important for tenants and staff to kind of, engage with each other and have a bit more for understanding personally than me being the middle person and saying, well, this is what staff said, this is what tenants know. You could hear it directly from the people who are actually working in the sector or those who are, living in the sector as well. So we had those. I facilitated it. We had, I think it was about 3 or 4 primary questions that we wanted to ask that would help with our data collection as well. And it was just like an open, free kind of forum where people can just talk and engage with each other as well. We had all of our focus groups had a turnout of at least 8 or more. So it was, as said, it was a mixture between the two. So, and the last one that we had was actually at the same time as, I think it was the World Cup or FA Cup or some kind of football thing, and we still had a good turnout. So that kind of shows the need for communication and people wanting to actually not only participate but have their voices heard.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks, Kai. Great answers.
Thank you.
Brilliant. I think the next hand is
Yes.
Athlete.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for presenting your findings. My question goes back to data as well. I briefly looked at the report, and it does say on the survey part that you did EDI monitoring. So I know you said that it was anonymized. What was the actual makeup of your survey participants, if you have that available?
Yes, I think it should be in the report. So the makeup we looked at was, I tried to stay away from white British because ethnic minorities is everything but white British, which I also mentioned in the report. So we had people from Polish backgrounds, we had people from Pakistani, African, Caribbean backgrounds as well, Asian backgrounds too. So there was a widespread of demographics on there. The EDI on there for our data collection was, of course, age, ethnicity, where do you live demographically and things like that. But there wasn't anything more personal like your name or anything definitive of, which organization you may be from that would identify you directly. So the EDI questions was more to do with how we can then go back and look at the contrast between what we had at the start and how much people are hopefully going to engage when we do this report again going forward. I think that's what we are planning to do, kind of have that data comparison going forward. So that was mainly what the EDI capturing was about, to see if we're getting more wider community engagement as well. What are the demographics that are engaging? What are the demographics that are not so much engaging as well? And then that would be something for us to then have further look at in the future and say, well, maybe there's something more that we can do, and maybe we could possibly tailor something in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right, we're throwing them all at you now. And Vicky Miller has asked a question on the side, and she can't. She's put, has there been a time when you felt your voice wasn't listened to, and what would have made you feel listened to, if that makes sense? So, a time where you haven't been listened to, and what would have helped you feel listened to?
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a backstory about how I got involved in engagement. I would say about during the COVID pandemic 5 years ago, I had a neighbor. They've moved on now, which she was in a abusive relationship, but her partner that didn't live there was just her boyfriend. She had 3 young kids as well. We're constantly throwing racial insults at me and my children. Were threatening to pour boiling water over us. Was threatening to stab us as well. And all of these things were reported to my housing association. But none of the neighbors would, except one, would really come forward and say anything in support of us, because we live in a predominantly white area. So this was going on for months, banging in the middle of the night. My daughter was about 4 at the time, my youngest one. So there was banging on the wall, playing music, shouting the N words for me and my family to hear. And I called my housing association at the time, saying that I'm not getting any sleep. The kids are hearing what's going on over there. And it's, can you come and do something, basically? And they would say, well, record it. So I recorded it, over audio. I would report back to them, and nothing was being done for months and months. This was happening. Video at the front too, and they were spitting in my front garden, throwing rubbish in there. And I was met with, well, how do you know it was them? Because I saw them do it. It's on the camera. And, there was always, we need more evidence. We need more evidence. No matter how much times I was saying, we have evidence. I was crying on the phone. I was stressed out. It was a lot, especially during the course of the pandemic. And I wasn't being heard. I was not being heard. It was frustrating as a single mother up against a man who was threatening to stab me, or if I, called the police or anything like that. It was intimidating, especially with 3 young kids that you're trying to protect at the same time. So I wasn't being heard at the time until I actually reported it, wrote an email to them and said, I'm going to the ombudsman because I'm fed up of this. I've told you guys, all you've done is you've contacted them and said that they'll stop doing it. Obviously they're not stopping, because they're still doing it every single night. It's not fair. So when I wrote that letter, it got through to the head of housing, and then that's when they actually did something, and they sent them a letter saying, if there's any further problems, or if you say anything to Miss Jackson at the time, or her kids, then you will be evicted. And that's when everything kind of calmed down. But it also coincided with the abuse and the police having to haul him away for smashing her window and stuff. So you know, six of one, half a dozen of the other kind of thing. But yeah, I know what it's like to not have your voice heard. I know what it's like to feel that fear being in your home. I know what it's like to kind of scream, this is what's happening. And, you know, it was eventually taken care of, but it should have been taken care of months down the line, months before. It shouldn't have escalated to this point. So, what I would say for those who have gone through or are going through this, it's I understand, because I can, you know, see myself in that position, had myself in that position, and it's important to know your rights, to understand the complaints process, to understand where you can go, and to, you know, not give up as well and not let up. And this is why it's important for organizations also to kind of have a, you know, a stance, like a firm stance on, we will not tolerate such and such and such, and it has to be followed up with some teeth as well. So I'm all for engagement, you know, finding that kind of like middle line, that mediation where we can move forward and, you know, we can cooperate and come to a meaningful outcome. But I also understand that that's not always possible. Sometimes you do have to go further with eviction or something of that nature, or, you know, but yeah, that's and it's not a nice thing where you don't feel comfortable in your own home, and you know, you can't relax or anything, or you're just dreading going to sleep, or you're dreading the weekend because you know that you can't even phone your housing officer for any type of support or anything. So yeah.
Thank you for that, Kai. I'm not 100% sure. I'm so sorry you went through that. And I think you're right. That balance of, oh, let's have a mediation and let's talk about it versus eviction. I know there'll be people here who have views on this. Does anybody want to come in on that? How they approach these sort of things, or have they? I know we've got a number of people from Cardiff community today who've done a lot of good work in the past in their area. Is anything? I might put you on the spot.
Yeah, and thank you for responding. I can manage to unmute myself but not put my hand up. Thank you. And I was just really keen to hear, because I think sometimes it's you know, the information you've given, Kai, around getting people around the table is one thing. You can have people around the table and you can still not listen, or people not feel that their views are taken on board. And obviously racial harassment is something that's really serious, isn't it? And like living next door to that every day is just horrific, and it makes me really sad to hear that you've gone through that. And I guess sometimes, you know, things can take some time to resolve, but you should always be treating with care and compassion and listened to and believed. And I think that's the key values that you'd want to make sure that anyone that's dealing with someone who's explaining what they're going through and the impact it's having is relayed back to them. And obviously antisocial behaviour generally is really complex as well, and it is a complex reaction. But yeah, making sure that you've got care, support, someone that you can talk to, like victim support, and you know, knowing that you're believed and you're taken seriously, and not having to put extra barriers in place. And I think it's always that danger, isn't it? People asking for evidence, and actually, you know, you've come forward with your evidence, and not always going to get everyone that's going to back you up, because people are scared in the neighbourhood. They don't want to be targeted themselves as well. So I think generally just always say, like, you know, let's try and find a way to get some evidence. So helping with people with CCTV or cameras, so you know, you haven't got to be the one that's kind of doing all the work to get that data as well, and that evidence. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Kai.
Thank you. Yeah, and just like engaging with people in general, you know, there are going to be some people that just don't want to engage, that, you know, may have had a history of, you know, bad engagement with their landlords, and may think that they don't want to engage. And there's going to be those people, but it's also about keeping them informed. So it's not always about having to hear from them constantly, but informing them that this is what's going on, this is how we engage in, this is when we're going to be in your local area, this is what's happening. And then you never know, they might just come one day and just show up on something that they may think, oh, this might look good, you know, or I've got the kids for this summer holiday, I may as well take them to this place because I didn't know it was, you know, this activity was happening or something like that. So it's about constantly keeping, you know, your tenants involved and in what's going on, and, you know, letting them know about different funding that may be available in their area, starting a new business, you know, what's going on at the community center, if there's adult courses that are going on, computer literacy courses, different things like that, because you never know what's going to be that kind of like chord that's going to, you know, strike for them, that they want to go out and do something and engage. And it just may be the start of their whole engagement, you know, career or anything like that. So yeah, it's just constantly keeping that open channel and just sending out information and comms. I know it's costly sometimes because it can cost thousands to post letters depending on how big it is, but also it's about, you know, utilizing websites, utilizing other partners in your community's websites as well. And, you know, it's even putting up a poster in the Asda or the Tesco where, you know, people are going to be walking by as well. So yeah, there's different things that, you know, you can do.
All right, I know we're getting to the end now. Can I just ask a question about, did you see anything around incentives or rewards or anything that were different? I ran an event recently with private renters in Cardiff with Welsh Government, and what stunned me was the diversity of people who came. A lot of Ukrainian refugees, people from Nepal, different, very, very diverse. And when I asked them about it, it was the time credits that
Yeah.
it'd be the incentive to go to the leisure, to over Easter holidays, to take their kids to the leisure centre and things like that. And I was surprised by that. Time credits have come and gone in Wales. They've been fashionable, unfashionable. And I was stunned at the most diverse people there were talking about they came for the time credits. I just wondered if you'd ever seen anything or any suggestions or differences.
Yeah, incentives are always a big thing and a big source of conversation over here. You'll find some organizations, well, most likely the bigger ones, are more likely to offer incentives. So they may give out vouchers to like an, was it all in one or all for one, where you can use it at different places as well, supermarkets and things like that. So they may pay you £20 for filling out a survey, or £50, or put your name down for a hamper or something like that. It's definitely something where tenants here have said, well, if you're getting incentives for engagement, is it actual real engagement, or are you just doing it for the incentives? So there's always that kind of like back and forth conversation. I do feel like personally, if you are part of a board or committee or something like that, having more incentives, if you're part of the formal engagement structure, really does help, because not a lot of people know how much work really goes into tenant engagement. Sometimes it can be like a full-time job. Some of the things that I do, I know we're wrapping up for time now. Some of the things that I do, like stage 2 complaints, scoping, interviews, all sorts of different stuff, writing out reports, reading, all of that, you know, it's a lot. When you really think about it, it is a lot, and it's a lot of time, and you are investing in your tenants. So if it's not financial incentives, it could be like training courses to help get them back into work, or, you know, for me, I'm doing my CIH level 3 as well. So it's different things like that thing that can help and support.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for that. And I think that training and support, I think Vicky Miller's also put some things in the chat there about how do we support and train people to feel more confidence, skills, training and stuff. So certainly that's something we'll pick up. I'm conscious of the time. We're going to start losing people. I could so many more questions, and we could have carried this on. Maybe we should have scheduled it differently, but I know we're going to start losing people. So I'm going to say, thank you, Kai. Thank you for everything you've done this morning on this. I know by the reactions and the comments. To everyone out there, you know, Kai is a consultant, a speaker. I'm sure you're open to work. If anybody,
I'm more than happy to come to Wales one day. You know, Helen, we'll set it up. Yeah.
So can I just say thank you? I hope you've enjoyed this session. It feels like we need to be doing a bit more of this and maybe get some more practice around what others are doing. We haven't probably gone around the room enough today to see other people's advice and tips, and people like Cardiff Community and TAF, I think, could also offer some support. So yeah, we'll look at a second follow-up for this, but thank you for all for coming. Thank you, Kai. And thank you for supporting TPAS Cymru and their events. Cheers.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone. Have a
bye.
good day.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
I'll pick up Helen. Thanks, Kai, for that.
Brilliant.
Sort of close the recording.
Oh,
Not we're going to say anything weird, but just
there we go. Stop recording. Thank you.